food. And like I said, if you have any questions, you can go ahead and email me because we're going to go through this really, really fast. And if I talk too fast, I apologize because you got to keep up. Provides safe, fun, and convenient ways for kids to get to school. We're housed at the University of Idaho under the direction of Helen Brown and Grace Goscart, who are two professors at University of Idaho that write our grant. And they use their expertise in health promotion and physical education to facilitate our program. So these are the 6 E's of Safe Routes to School: evaluation, education, engineering, encouragement, enforcement, and most recently, equity. Last spring, I watched a webinar on how to incorporate equity into your Safe Routes to School program, and it was all about using existing routes and maps and equipment to help kids access places like the library or food. And I really felt like this was a great piece for Moscow to incorporate because I felt like there were kids that were not being served by our program, and so how to reach them it would be great to do a project that could reach more of these kids. So I attended the Palouse Clearwater Food Summit last year and was asked to conduct a panel on ways that we could incorporate active travel for food access. And so from that came this idea that I wish I could claim credit for, but I can't because it was kind of a group consensus, that we should get involved with the free summer food service program. So this is a program that provides free meals to kids 0 to 18, no questions asked, they're free for everyone. And it's a program intended to fill the gap in nutritious meals that kids are missing out on when school is not in session, okay? So what we did was we formed a partnership between Safe Routes to School and the City of Moscow and the Summer Food Service Program through the USDA to provide better access, safer access to their lunch site, and then also to provide educational programming for the kids already attending the lunch site. And I have to say that this was probably one of the coolest projects that I've worked on since I've been hired. So the summer lunch site is at Lena Whitmore Elementary, which is one of our program schools for Safe Routes, which is great because they already have things like basic infrastructure in place, crosswalks, completed sidewalks, bike racks. So it makes it easy for kids to walk and bike to this location. So it's kind of perfect for this setting. And the other reason it's perfect is because we already have maps. This is our Safe Routes to School program map. Lena Whitmore is right there in the middle. You can't see it, it's kind of tiny. But these routes show how long it would take, walking or biking, and then the best route to take to access the school. So kids that don't go to this school come here in the summer for the summer lunch, so these maps were great to give to them. And with the summer lunch, lots of kids walk and bike to this location unsupervised. They're either self-managing at home while a parent works, or the parent is not involved in the process of making sure that that child gets food, and so they walk or bike to these locations independently to have a meal and to play with other kids. So the first thing we did was we gave away bike helmets because we wanted to make sure that kids that were already biking had safety equipment. And these are some kids decorating their helmets. They're having a lot of fun. And then we moved on to the education piece of biking. So we first did an educational bike rodeo that talked about specific safe habits and best practices for kids to employ to get to this lunch site. And then we moved on to just a really fun bike rodeo where kids could come and do this obstacle course. And I had Scott, who's here today. He helped me with that. He's in Pullman, and he came over with all of his equipment and his bikes and all of his really fun stuff. And we set up this great course. And we ran 150 kids through it in about an hour, and they loved it. They just would not stop. They cried when we packed it all up and drove away. And they followed you for a while, Scott, didn't they? They thought he was just relocating. The other thing we did was we wanted to teach kids about the built environment, so not just biking, but these are some kids doing a scavenger hunt around the summer lunch site, and they're looking for things like bike racks, crosswalks, stop signs, and just increasing their awareness of the physical environment that they're interacting with at this lunch site. The other thing we did, this was an ongoing program all summer. This was our walk and bike bingo sheet. So kids that completed all of the activities on this bingo sheet earned a stainless steel water bottle. And this was really fun because it got kids out. There were things like bike to the library, bike with a friend, bike to the pool, things like that. And so it wasn't just to the lunch site, it was everywhere. And then the last thing we did was we empowered kids by having them commit and write their name and their grade on this commitment board, saying how many times they would walk or bike to school in a week in the upcoming school year. So this is at the end of the summer. And then kids that committed, I gave them school supplies. This is a quote from Mimi, and I probably won't have time to read it all, but I'll try. The partnerships that we have with groups like Safe Routes to School make our summer lunch program extraordinary. Parents and students are excited to have the opportunity for fun activities. Summer is a more relaxed time when lessons and applicable life skills may be adopted and become good habits. This program was great. Anyway, so conclusions. Programming like this really helps to fill a gap that I felt we were missing with reaching some of these kids. We do a lot of outreach at farmers markets and things like that, but that appeals to a specific demographic and not to another demographic. And then safety is always key. When you have a lot of kids and there's not a lot of supervision, you have to make sure that safety is your #1 priority. And then lastly, we are so much better when we work together. And this was not a relationship that would have come naturally for us, but we partnered with them. You know, they're passionate about kids and feeding kids, and we're passionate about helping kids bike, and so it was just a natural, very natural relationship. So just wanted to say thank you for listening to me talk really fast, and I will now turn the time over to the next presenter, who is you. Okay, thank you.
So my name is Francois Cleveland. I'm the Associate State Director of Advocacy for AARP Idaho. And I'm here to talk about our Livable Communities work. We partner with the World Health Organization on livable communities, and that looks like in our area 3 basic things. We have 8 domains of livability. We have a livability index, and we have our network of age-friendly communities. If you want to know why we're in here, basically our communities are aging. You know, every day 10,000 boomers turn 65, and by 2030 we'll have twice as many people over the age of 65 as we have today, and that's 1 out of every 5 adults. So we believe that this work needs to be done to help our communities so that we can age friendly in place. So when you look at these slides here, we have basically 2. In the first slide there is 2010, that's what the aging looks like. Dark blue is the older, and by 2020, the next slide shows how much older our population is growing in all of our communities. You know, I got this little thing up on the side, says greetings from Idaho, because most people, you know, you think about people going to Florida or whatever, they're staying in place now. Instead of going to Florida, they're staying right here in Idaho. So because of that, people want to stay in place, they want to stay in their homes. 78% of people 45 years or older wants to stay exactly where they're at, right there in their homes. And so when you look at ways to keep those people in their communities, in their homes. Speaking of communities, our communities, you know, 80% wants to stay in their own communities, but you know, for the past 50 years, we've been building communities where you can't stay in your home. You don't have the transportation to get around. You can't get on your bike and ride around. You can't walk, and yet that's where people want to stay. So we did a survey and looked at, so what types of amenities do you want to have close to your home? And we found that people want a bus stop, people want a grocery store, people want a park. And that was an older adult survey, so we thought, well, what about the rest of the age groups? We found that millennials want the same thing that older adults want. They want to stay where they're at, and they are willing to get a smaller home if they can be in a place that they just have 20 minutes less commute to work. So we believe in a livable community, people of all ages can make their community a lifelong home. And I'm a little ahead of my slide because I talk a little fast when I do this. But we believe that livable communities are good for people, they're good for communities, because the compactness of a community makes people so that they have a community that is walkable, that decreases dependence on automobiles. It's integration of land uses, so you have multiple use within a certain area. You have your housing diversity, and you have your transportation options so that people can remain independent in where they live. And the things that are good is that it also increases property values and it increases your tax base, because if you have a multiple use area, and this second graph is from 4 communities that I looked at, how much your tax base will increase if you're in a multiple use area, and they found that it has significantly increased the tax base. So when we look at communities, we look at 8 domains of livability. The first one is outdoor spaces and buildings. You have to have places to go. You have to have buildings that are accessible so that you can get someplace and you know where you're going and you feel more comfortable once you are there. The second one is you need transportation, because driving should not be the only way that you get around. You know, we're here at the Walk Bike Alliance. You know, we like to walk, we like to bike, but that also includes busing. It includes public and private types of transportation, which includes maybe Uber or other things to that nature, where you have options of where you can go and obviously places to go. You have housing, so that you have an accessible house. You know, a lot of the places that we live today, they call them Peter Pan homes. You know, they're built for people that are about 35 years old, and they are difficult to get around once you are 75 years old. But we find that more people, I think it's up to 80% of people that are up to 80, are still staying in their private homes once they get older. And in that area, in your community, you want to make sure you have social participation and respect and social inclusion. So you have multi-generational opportunities to talk with others that are, you know, younger than you, older than you. You have people that accept you for who you are and where you live. And the same thing with civic participation and employment. You know, just because you are retired doesn't mean A, that you want to work, or you don't want to work, or that you don't want to volunteer, that you don't want to be out in the community. But it's a way to combat isolation as you grow older. If you have places to work, if you have places to volunteer, then you are less likely to get into that isolation problem. The other thing we have to recognize is that not everybody is, you know, in internet. They don't have mobile devices. We have to have information and communication sources that are accessible to all ages, and people that may not be as comfortable with those adaptions that we have today. We all have our smartphones. Well, not everybody has that. Not everybody has internet, broadband capabilities. And the last one, you have to be able to access your health care. So that is through not only your transportation type thing, but it needs to be, you know, affordable and high quality in those areas. And so that's what the 8 domains that we look at when we look at an age-friendly community. And we look at that through a livability index, and that's something that our Policy Institute has put together data sources from all different areas, and there's 7 domains within that livability index that looks at how livable your community is. And you can look at it, drill down by neighborhood, by city, by county, by state, to see how livable your community is. And this next slide right here will show you Boise itself. You know, Boise scores a 58 in the 7 areas. There's opportunity, health, engagement, transportation, neighborhoods, environment, and housing. And it'll give a 7-page document of why Boise scored at 58. And you can look at that for every neighborhood that you have here in Idaho of why it was scored that way. With that, the ARP, and we encourage all the communities across the nation. We have one in Idaho. Boise just was accepted into our age-friendly network in March. And we are, you know, we get about 5 more communities every, I think they said, week right now. I mean, it's exponentially getting more, and it looks at why and how your community is working. ARP has lots of different resources, and it doesn't look like it's going to come up to show you what they are. I probably have it on click instead of on rotate. So let me kind of come over here and show you. But basically, we have a ton of resources. They're all available online through our website, and it goes through walk audits, it goes through the livability index, it goes all different ideas on how to make your community more age-friendly. And I have a few of them up here that you can come pick up. I have about 10 copies of each. I have a business card. If you don't get a copy, you can always come ask me for it. And that's it in a nutshell. Super fast. It's a lot of information, but that's the best I can do in 20 slides and 20 seconds. Who's next?
Okay, I'm Andrew Mentzer. I'm the Executive Director of the West Central Mountains Economic Development Council. I'm here to give you a quick rundown on how we leverage some really cool strategic partnerships to come up with a feasibility study through the International Mountain Biking Association and some local partners to build single track in the right-of-way on county roads. So any mountain bikers, trail runners in the crowd, hopefully a lot of folks, that's where this is generally pointing. So the idea is that we are trying to create where you might have a sidewalk in a rural community. We're trying to create single-track meandering pathways using the existing right-of-way. And so I'm going to do this the old-fashioned way and go ahead and rotate through to make sure we don't go over on time. So our group is an economic development agency. We work on community development as well as economic development, and we encompass Valley County as well as North Adams County, which incorporates the Meadows Valley School District. And a lot of what we do is business engagement through the Idaho Department of Commerce, but a lot of what we do is also local projects to identify how and where and why and when we should be engaging in things like placemaking. So why did we get involved, even though we're an economic development group? Well, I think I kind of just explained that, but the short version is if there's a lot of value in a recreation tourism economy in having this type of infrastructure, making pathways accessible, whether it's single track or ADA compliant 8-foot pathways, it doesn't matter to us. The more of that we have, the more capacity we have for an argument that supports accessibility for everybody. So some of our challenges, I think everyone's familiar with this, NIMBYism. There's bananas. There's all these different acronyms about people who potentially might get in your way if you're trying to do something cool. And so, and that's my crass way of putting it. But you know, our challenges are going to be misperceptions about what pathways are. I think a lot of people can empathize with that. I've had people come up to me at community meetings and tell me, well, you're going to take Pappy's farm. I'm like, it's public right-of-way. It's existing county road right-of-way. We are not touching any private land for this project. So the solution or the concept is what you see right here. Hopefully that picture is good. Basically, you have a road, and some of the county roads in Valley County and North Adams County are a little bit more improved than that. But basically, you build within that right-of-way, that drainage system, a meandering single track. That allows for bikers, pedestrians of any sort, to get around. And so that does a lot for community health. It does a lot for connectivity. So right now, if you need to get from, say, Cascade to Donnelly, you would take Highway 55. How cool would it be to be able to ride your bicycle or walk on rural, remote segments, maybe adjacent to the lake, in order to get there? So our strategic partners include Valley County Pathways. They've been a big supporter of the concept. So I sit on that board with Brett and a few other folks, and we've had some discussions about how can we identify the routes that are going to fit this. And there's been a strategic plan in place that Valley County Pathways put forth and the county adopted recently. So we're leaning on that pretty heavily. Valley County itself basically threw down the gauntlet. They said, hey, if you want to do this project, if you want to build single track within county right-of-way, we need to know that it's not going to cost very much or anything at all. And we need to know that it's safe and it's going to basically be low maintenance or no maintenance at all. Groups like SIMBA, we've had some discussions with at Central Idaho Mountain Biking Association, and then also the people doing the heavy lifting in this are IMBA, International Mountain Biking Association out of Colorado. So they're going to do the feasibility study to tell us whether or not that single track path actually fits in that particular right-of-way. We got really lucky for fundraising. My group, the West Central Mountains Economic Development Council, put together the concept, put together the proposal, and put together the original request. The Mountain Central Association of Realtors with National Association of Realtors pitched in the lion's share of the funding, and the remaining came from a partnership through Midas Gold. So working with the county has been actually really a pleasure. They've been very supportive of this idea, but they just need to know that it's going to work. And so rather than going strictly on the if you build it, they will come, we're looking at all the data and tactics behind how this serves our economy, how this serves public health. And so it's a comprehensive approach that runs across a lot of partnerships, including the county. When it comes to routes, you probably can't see this, but this is the Valley County Pathways master plan map that was developed by Valley County Pathways Group. And so we're running off of this route. There was an existing rails to trails potential right-of-way in Valley County that was a missed opportunity. That right-of-way was made available, about 2 years before rails to trails was a thing. And so that right-of-way for the railbed went back to the adjacent property owners. So that's why we're taking a look at right-of-way that's accessible rather than right-of-way that's been vacated. But you can see the route basically runs, we're exploring from Smiths Ferry all the way up to New Meadows. And that's about 66 miles of connecting communities on rural routes. So IMBA has been awesome. You know, they're very busy. There's a lot of pathways projects going on nationally right now, but having IMBA engaged has been invaluable. They're going to be the third party that validates this entire concept. So we had to do quite a bit of prep and study. If you're curious about the nuts and bolts of this, a lot of what we had to do was come up with GIS data, with county tracts, private property ownership, old rights of way. I mean, this is where you get really into the weeds. And so we had to pull all that information together, and that was a lot of people working from Forest Service, BLM, Bureau of Reclamation. A lot of agencies had to step up and share their data with us so that we could get that over to IMBA. So if you wanted to do something like this in your community, and these types of things exist all over the place, it just hasn't, I don't think, been formalized quite like this. You need time, talent, and treasure. That's the old nonprofit way. And so we got really lucky with our support from Midas Gold and from Mountain Central Association of Realtors. I'm putting a lot of time into the heavy lifting to get all the
work with the BMPO, and we're both safe routes to school coordinators for District 91 and District 93. And we're going to talk about the bike challenge, which is something that we've been doing for quite a few years. It's just kind of grown. And the first slide that we have here shows what we call the art contest. And so the students, in the beginning of the bike challenge, they submit artwork, and we take the artwork from one piece of artwork from each school, and they vote on it. And this is a slide from the very first bike challenge that happened back in 2011, I believe. And the gal with the hat on, she's the one that went to the bike shop and said, I have a great idea. I want to do this bike challenge. I want the kids to ride their bikes to school, and I want them to fill the racks. And so from there, it's gone from 78 kids the very first year in 2011 to last year we had over 4,000. I think we gave out 4,458 t-shirts, and it's just grown. Last year we had 26 schools. This year we had 28 schools. We've had a couple of charter schools that have wanted to come on board with us, and so this is. This is in a rural area. We have a couple of parents that are willing to grab all the kids in the area and ride their bikes to school, and they take them along these rural roads, which is about the only safe route to school that they have. And I think this is pretty common in a lot of areas in the state. So here's another example of them. But the students are so excited about the big challenge. If they ride for 12 days, they get the opportunity to win a t-shirt, and the artwork that's selected from the art challenge is printed on the back of the t-shirts. And one year we had so many participants that Schwinn gave us 7 bikes, I believe, to one school. And so there was a big family in that school that really wanted to participate, that really had very little, and so the bikes went to most of the children in that one family. The principal was who got the bikes, and he felt that was the most appropriate. So this is them getting their bikes. I think there was almost 20 children in the family, so we were happy that they had them, and it gave them the opportunity to participate in the bike challenge. This is some more of the bikes that they gave away. We partner with the Smith Group, which is a Chevy and Honda dealership in our area, and they're the ones that make it possible that the students get the t-shirts. And we also partner with a local bike shop, Bill's Bike and Run, and they donate a bike to every single school. So at the end of the bike challenge, those students have the opportunity that with their punch cards that have 12 punches in them, they have the opportunity to win a bike. And so it's really been a great program for us. We go around to all of the schools and do an assembly before the bike challenge. And so this is really our opportunity to get into the schools and teach them safety. We teach them safety, we talk about the program, and we talk about how important it is for them to be healthy and riding their bikes. And so there may be only 4,500 kids that participate in the bike challenge, but we know that there's close to 10,000 kids in those school districts And so if they're not participating in the bike challenge, they're at least going to the assemblies and hearing the bike safety information and using that. And we go, so if they're there from K to 6, they hear it that many years. And so hopefully that is leaving something with them that they will be safe riders and that they'll want to ride. We have a lot of low LMI schools in our district, because I know everybody does, and we've had great support from Idaho Falls Community Pathways. They went in, this is Hawthorne, one of our very well-known LMI schools, that they went in and did a bike tune-up for the kids before it started. And Chris, how many kids did you have show up?
About 40, I think.
40. And they've continued to do this year after year. And this year we had the bike shop hold a couple of clinics too. And they had to turn kids away after many, many hours of working on the bikes. And we had 3 of those, right? Mm-hmm. So, bike helmets, we give out bike helmets. Before we've started selling the bike helmets because we want the kids to use them when they get them, and really the ones that need them.
5,000 of them.
Yeah, and so we
give away a lot.
give that money to the Smith Group to use for the T-shirts in return. So
We give them a little coupon so they can buy the helmets for $5. So they're still getting a really good deal on a helmet, and most of them, they usually sell them out pretty fast.
yeah, it's been a really, really good program. I mean, we've grown it pretty big in the last few years, and we have such great support from our partners that they continue to want us to fill the racks and have those kids participating. So,
What has it done year round? Has it increased the amount of riders in there?
do you know,
Record?
I know that the bike store says that they get a lot of kids that come in looking for more bike stuff, and that it has increased ridership.
I think the one problem we have is the principals would rather us do it in the fall because the kids ride the rest of the school year because they realize how fun it is. So bike month needs to be changed to September. So we do it, maybe they ride. And then one thing too that we changed that was really awesome is we didn't want to leave the bus kids out. So they're allowed to ride in their own neighborhood. So we send them home with their own little punch pass that they can put on their fridge for their mom that initials it, so they can still ride in the neighborhood. And I think that's what made it even bigger for us, is when we could include every single child. And then some of them that didn't have bikes, anything with wheels, roller skates, scooters, we just wanted to be active. And since we increased all of that and allowed that to happen, our participation's huge. So it's been a great event. We love it.
It's work.